In this session, we'll go into an in-depth look at the Stepping Stones channel within ORIGO. To navigate to a lesson, you'll click on Starts, the grade level, the module, the lesson, and then Steps. This brings you to the teacher edition, the teacher notes for this lesson. Here we have what we call the breadcrumbs, the path you took to get to the lesson. These icons here, as you can see, you can hover over them. This first icon provides suggestions on how to support English language learners during the lesson. This icon identifies the learning that may be observed. The folder icon identifies the learning that is evident by student work examples. Here you can navigate quickly to the next lesson, before, within this learning progression, or lessons prior within the learning progression. Here on this lesson, you have the title of the lesson, the student expectation is targeting. Step 1. Step 1 will always list the materials you need to prep for the lesson. Step 2, remember, is your engage piece, which will activate students' prior knowledge before beginning the lesson. Step 3 will be your explore piece of the lesson, where you begin teaching the lesson and developing those classroom discourse skills. And then step 4 is a way to close your lesson. Looking back at step 3, the classroom discourse, or the step-in discussion that ORIGO provides, that part of the lesson is essential in developing the conceptual mathematics that are foundational to the lesson. Let's take a look at the additional components in ORIGO, the step up and step ahead, which are your student journals. Notice at what point they are introduced at the very last, right before closing the lesson. To get access to the step up and step ahead for this lesson, you'll go over into the resource tab and you'll click on student journal. You can view that in color, black and white, and here's an example of the answers, and then all those documents in Spanish. So here we have the step in, the step up, and the step ahead. Remember, in grades 1 through 5, each lesson is a 2-page document for the students. If you need to print an additional copy, you could. If not, you can click the X down below. You also have access to just the step-in discussion components. If you wanted to phase those discussion and questions in slowly for the students, you could. And as you can see, different questions are populating. This way you get to have a whole class discussion from student to student, teacher to student, without students fumbling through books. And once you're done, you'll click the X down below. You'll also notice that this particular lesson referenced the ORIGO flare. So here you have access to the flare. Here in step 3, it speaks about opening the ORIGO flare tool. So instead of going through the channels, you can click here on the resource tab. Again, if I use a mat, I can lock that mat in place. Pull up my additional options if I want to color things we reviewed in a prior session. Once I click out, notice how it brings me back to the lesson that I was on. So clicking that within the resource tab will take you to the flare model and back to your lesson. Some lessons have what we call static where images. Static where images are just an additional image that you have describing utilized with the lesson. So you can view those on a single page or a double page. And again, you can create custom playlists as well to sequence your lessons. Next, let's look at the differentiations tab. You're going to click on lessons, then differentiations. And here you have an example of things you can do for extra help. extra practice, and extra challenge. And again, these were for students who need a little more challenge, students that are on level, and students that may need a little extra help. These are referenced within the curriculum framework, usually under a small group reteach suggestions. Any pages that you may need to go along with any of these practices, they will be located within the resource tab. So notice how the extra help has one copy of this page. You will print that copy from the resource tab. Click it, print, exit out. Next, let's look at the copy of the student practice book. Now, students in grades 1 through 5 have access to this actual consumable practice book. You also have a copy of the practice book online. And for any kindergarten teachers who would like to print this practice book, you have a copy of the practice book online. After choosing the grade level of the module and the lesson, you'll be able to print a copy through the resource tab. Now, ORIGO has designed it that all even lessons revisit content from lessons in the module or previous modules. Lessons from 1, 5, and 9, those ORIGO lessons are designed only online because they are designed to develop fluency of basic facts. Lessons 3, 7, and 11 are written computational practice. For kindergarten teachers, your practice pages do look a little different, so let's take a look at some kindergarten lessons. Notice here you have a couple additional tabs. You have whole class, small group 1, and small group 2. Let's take a look at those tabs. Whole class is where you'll get your initial teacher journal page. That setup is the same. Anything that's referenced on this page, the student journal, or any support documents, you'll find in the resource tab as well. But you also have small group 1 and small group 2, which we reference in the curriculum framework document. We reference on when to use these documents. So just know that if it says small group 1 or small group 2, that is for kindergarten teachers and you access them through these breadcrumbs. Let's review some of the module planning tools that are within all grade levels. You have the Mathematics tab, which gives you background mathematics, learning targets, and research for the lessons. You also have the Resource Overview tab. It's a list of physical resources required to teach each module, the actual lessons, the plans and differentiations, along with the ongoing practice book. Cross-curricular activities. These are links just for kindergarten teachers where how you can tie the curriculum into other subject areas. And then assessments. The assessments are multiple methods used to assess the understanding and skills, which we do encourage teachers to be mindful that we do not use the same scope and sequence that ORIGO used. So when using those assessments, please review those to see if students have actually had all the content listed on those assessments. Let's take a look at the Mathematics tab in more great detail. Here you have the focus. The focus is the mathematical background of the module with related professional learning videos. Here you have the Math Ed symbol and it tells you exactly which video you could benefit for this module. Next you have the learning targets and how and what may be assessed during this particular module. The process standards that are used in this module, and as you can see, some lessons are double coded with more than one process standard. The English Language Learners tab, which provides suggestions on how to support English language learners during this particular module. The Language Development tab, which is simply the vocabulary used within this module. A newsletter that can go home, and then finally research and practice. See how this module reflects the best practices within our profession. Let's look at some of the additional module planning tools within the module. The Resource Overview tab just simply lists all the resources you'll need for the entire module. So you can see all the different resources if you want to pull those by module. And then you also have, again, the cross-curriculum links for kindergarten only. All lessons are found in the lesson tab. Let's go to. Next, we're going to take a look at the Big Book. We mentioned the Big Book tools earlier. You also have access to this Big Book directly on the page. As you see, I can hover over it and it gives me a place to link to the Big Book, as well as a place here within the Resource tab to link to the Big Book. If I click it here, notice it takes me to the activities for this particular Big Book, and I can launch those activities or the Big Book tool. Notice when I'm launching within the lesson, when I click out, it brings me back to the place I started. I can click back here on my lesson to go directly back to my lesson. Or if I wanted to bring up the resource guide for these lessons and additional details, I can click the Resource tab button and go to the lesson activities that we looked at earlier. And again, when I click out to get back to the lesson, I can click Fast Link. Let's look at the More Math tab within the module. The More Math tab is activities and suggestions where you can get additional math activities related to this module. There are investigations. There's 3 investigations to choose from. There are problem-solving activities to choose from. There are 3 of those. Click on the actual activity. Adding 1 or 2-digit numbers is activity 2. And you also have cross-curricular links for different subjects you can look at. Next, let's take a look at the Assessment tab. The Assessment tab provides an overview, a chart to see the assessment options for this module. It also gives you some examples of formative assessments to be used to make informed decisions to guide your instruction. It gives you some summative assessments designed to take place at a plan point within the instruction or after the instruction. And then you have a recording piece. This recording piece here can only be found in the More Math tab, the Assessment Recording tab. Notice how it says Record 7. Record 7 will give you a list of individual achievement learning targets for modules 1 through 6. Record 2 gives you the whole class look. You can also download an Excel version of this tab, but that can only be done under Module 1. See here now I have a download function where I can download and edit and input my students. Be mindful that when you're looking at the various assessments that ORIGO has to offer, since we as a district do not use ORIGO scope and sequence, students may not be successful using this document as a whole. So be mindful of that and take a thorough check of this document before using any of these documents. When you're in ORIGO and you are looking for additional lessons for ORIGO to go along for additional reteach information, here you can use this pull down menu and hover over to get a drop down menu of other lessons in a particular topic. Clicking on that lesson will take you to the notes page for that lesson. Another fast way. And our last and final channel we need to discuss is stepping into financial literacy. This will tackle the TEKS under personal financial literacy for the state of Texas. This is why it is also a separate channel and not embedded into ORIGO Stepping Stones. Now, students do have this embedded into their ORIGO Stepping Stones journal, but as a teacher, you must click on the channel, go to your various grade level and lesson, and click on steps to get the access to the teacher notes. Thank you for watching this tutorial. Next, we'll review some of the things you learned within this e-course. Give you a moment to review ORIGO.